Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. Today I'm going to talk about the books that I read during the second half of May, but real quick, I'm just going to review the 7 books that I finished the first half of the month. I do have a video about them already, but at the beginning of the month, I did read these 7 books. Something in the Air by Suzanne Enoch, Dear Henry, Love Edith by Becca Kinzer, Hang the Moon by Jeanette Walls, Shiner by Amy Jo Burns, Everything Else in the Universe by Tracy Holzer, Murder Road by Simone St. James, and The Women by Kristen Hanna. If you want to know anything about my thoughts of those books, you have to watch my mid-month wrap-up. So I'm not even going to tell you. But I do have quite a few more books to talk about. So these are just piled up willy-nilly. So I think this is going to be pretty quick today because I feel like I have talked about quite a few of these. I did have... Well, let me do this one first because it doesn't quite fit in the pile. First, I'll say The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. I did a Christian nonfiction read-along for this book, and I had 2 different lives where we talked about the book in depth. I will link those in the description below if you're interested. This is a memoir of Corrie ten Boom and her family. They lived in the Netherlands at the beginning of World War II and got involved with the resistance and hiding people in their home, but they were caught and sent to concentration camps. It's a very harrowing story, but also the faith of this family was so remarkable. And Corrie ten Boom herself is just such a cool lady. I just really love this book. The first time I read it, I was in high school, so I really loved going back to visit it again. I have 2 editions of it. Both are very cool. This is the 35th anniversary edition, but this one is called Engaging Visual Journey, and it has extra pictures that are not included in this one. So if you're interested, both are available on Amazon for not that much, but this is a 5-star read. It was fantastic. Fantastic. Then I had a DNF this month. My 12 books to read in 2024 pick for the month of May was The Spy Mistress by Jennifer Chiaverini. I just was bored. I didn't find the main character is based on a real life woman, Elizabeth Van Leeuw. I just didn't like her character. I shouldn't say I didn't like her. I just wasn't drawn into the story at all. I found it to be very heavy on historical events and not as much focused on the people involved in this story. So it was, do I want to say it was too historical, not enough fiction? Is that a thing? I don't know. I just was a little bit bored at the beginning. I made it maybe 20% in and I decided I don't care. So I DNF'd that one. I preach DNF that book all the time, but honestly, I have a hard time DNFing. So I kept wanting to go back to it, but I decided, no, I'm not going to do it. My Patreon book club book for the month of May was The Love Story of Missy Carmichael by Beth Morrey. I liked this okay, but I didn't love it. We follow Missy Carmichael, who's an older woman, a little bit prickly, a little bit cold, a little bit isolated, and insecure, I would say, as well. And she, throughout the course of this book, we get to know her and what in her life brought her to where she's at this point in time. She meets these 2 women who have very big personalities and kind of start to include her in their activities and get to know her a little bit and befriend her. One of them kind of asks her to dog sit for a friend, and the dog is a big part of this story and a big part of bringing Missy out of her shell and helping her to connect and engage with others. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. I just didn't love Missy that much. And as we were learning about Missy and her marriage to Leo, I really didn't like Leo, and their story was just really not my favorite. So I just gave this 3 stars. I know it was a mixed bag for some of the people in my Patreon. Some really liked it. Some liked it more than me. Some liked it the same. Some liked it less. Lots of people DNF'd. So it got kind of across the board ratings from my group. So that's Missy Carmichael. I'm glad to have read it, though. It was one of my Christmas book exchange books. And then my Patreon pick for the month of May was A Council of Dolls by Mona Susan Power. And I didn't love this one either. And I probably would have DNF'd if it wasn't my Patreon pick. But in this one, we follow 3 generations of women who are part of the Dakota people. So we're in 1961, 1925, and then 1888. So we kind of go backwards in time. I don't know. I feel like I don't really remember. What I remember about this book mostly was that I really didn't like the dolls side of things. I didn't understand why the dolls were such a big part of the story. But it was about these three women and their relationships and their families. Indian boarding schools was a part of the story. Struggles between tribe relations with the white people. I don't know. I just didn't find myself connecting with this book at all. And I kind of read it to be done with it rather than read it because I was enjoying it, which there's a difference in that. I gave it 3 stars. There were some storylines that I did really like. There were parts that were very interesting. I thought the writing was done well, but I just wasn't drawn into the story at all, really. So that was a bit of a bummer for me because I was hopeful that I was going to like this more. It was pretty heavy, and it just didn't connect with me emotionally at all, which is fine. But if you know me at all, I connect with books emotionally really easily. This one just didn't cut it for me, sadly. The only other one that was sort of on my radar for the month was Dead in Gondola by Anne Claire. Last Word to the Wise was the one that's actually on my TBR, and I forgot that I need to go back on Spotify and finish that because I got about halfway through the second book in here. I know I talked about this a lot in my weekend reading vlog. Cozy-ish murder mystery set in a ski hamlet up a mountain where you have to take a gondola to get up and down. And it centers around these 2 sisters who run the Christie bookshop. The Christie sisters, Ellie and Meg, whose family has owned a bookshop for 5 generations, focuses on mysteries and thrillers, and a murder happens in their little hamlet, and the girls get involved trying to figure stuff out. I liked it. It was fine. Ultimately a bit forgettable, and yet I really enjoyed it while I was reading it. So that also is a 3-star read, but it's so funny because it's such a different 3-star than some of my other 3 stars. I don't know. It just is what it is. I enjoyed it while I was reading it. So I talk about The Mother-in-Law by Sally Hepworth was fantastic. I really like Sally Hepworth. Family drama where everybody in the family has their secrets. The mother-in-law comes across as very unlikable, very cold, harsh personality, and she is pretty harsh. But as you get to know her, like you kind of see a little bit of her reasoning, and she changes in your eyes as a reader as you're reading through this. But there are still some mysteries. But before too long, the mother-in-law is found dead with a suicide note nearby and a bottle of pills in her hand, but it's not as cut and dry as it may seem. And we start to learn a lot more about the brother and the sister and the daughter-in-law and all the different people in this family and their financial troubles. And we learn a lot more about the mother herself, the mother-in-law. Yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed this one by Sally Hepworth. I also enjoyed The Matchmaker's Gift by Linda Cohen Leugman. I gave this one 4 stars. This one is another one that I talked about in my weekend reading vlog a while ago, but it takes place in 1910 and also like a generation later. So 1950s, maybe 60s. And 2 women who have this ability to matchmake. They can tell when people are meant to be together. But the grandmother in the older timeline, she's very young when she begins to recognize that she has skills in matchmaking, but at the time it wasn't really allowed for her to do that. And so we learn about how she kind of made a place for herself in that world. And there's a little touch of magical realism in here that I loved. It was just in how they made their matches. Like they could see a silver or a gold thread connecting 2 people or whatever. So there's just a tiny touch of magical realism in here. But I really enjoyed this. I found it to be engaging and sweet. I just really enjoyed this a lot. 4 stars. And then a 5-star read. Final book that I'm going to talk about today is Orbiting Jupiter by Gary D. Schmidt. I know I talked about this one as well. I absolutely loved this book. Oh my goodness. So this is a middle grade and it read very quickly. I read it in one morning, just over the course of a couple hours. And we follow Joseph is a 14-year-old boy in the foster care system, and he goes to live with his family who live on a farm. And this family is a wonderful family, opening up their home to foster children, and the way that they support and come around Joe as he is working through some of his past and the struggles that he's had in his life. And Joe had a baby and her name is Jupiter, and he's never met that baby. And his whole world revolves around this idea of being able to go see the baby. So the way that bullies are handled in here, the way that Joe and Jack is the son in this family who live on the farm, and Jack and Joe strike up a friendship, which is really cool. I loved this one, and it ripped my heart out at the end. The ending of this was kind of unbelievable to me, and I cried lots of tears. I cried lots and lots of tears, which is a sure sign almost that it's going to get a 5-star from me. It was fantastic, and now it makes me want to read a lot more from Gary D. Schmidt. So good. So good. I also did make more progress in Words of Radiance. I am now about 35% through that book. I think I probably read about 200 or 300 pages of it, which is about another book, right? So can I add that to the pile? So here are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, 7 because I DNF'd. Here are the books that I read in the second half of June. Nope. May. I would love to hear from you. If you read any of these, what your thoughts were on them. Did you think the same as me? Did you think differently from me? I would love to hear about it. Yeah, it was a quick one today because I've talked a lot about most of those in other videos. So if you haven't watched those other videos, get on it. What are you waiting for? Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here, and I look forward to talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.